morning and welcome to the Board of Directors meeting of May 26, 2023. Not watching, right? No. Anthony Alto.
Here.
Present. Andy Watson. Here. Roger Morton.
Here.
Joe O'Donnell.
Here.
Ed Smither.
Here.
Don Taki Chiapula is excused. Art Tolentino.
Present.
Robert Yu.
Here. Chair.
On the agenda, we have basically 4 items on this agenda. Anyone here? You can also choose to speak at the time that that specific agenda item is called. I will also call for testimony at that time. Anyone here in the audience? If not, Cindy, do we have anyone who's on?
No, we don't, but we do have written testimony that you're holding. It was just walked in this morning.
Okay, so do we have a testimony that we're receiving from Konohiki, which is, let's see, it looks like he sent this to President Biden, HPD, University of Hawaii at Manoa, Governor Josh Green, Mayor Blangiardi, and interested others. I think we're part of the interested others. And this speaks to, it looks like, and I'm just flipping through this, speaks to the illegal overthrow of the kingdom. I'm not sure which specific item he submitted this for. Did he say, Cindy? No. Okay. So members, it will be part of the record because it was submitted. I can't tell you for which agenda item. And it is from Konohiki, walked in this morning. Anyone else? Virtually or in person or? Okay, thank you very much. We move to agenda item number 2, which is the executive director's update, and Laurie is here, so I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, board members. So just a few updates. So segment 1 will be opening on June 30th. We'll be handing the system over to Roger within the next few weeks. All the testing has been done and certified by our stakeholders. So that's kind of exciting to hand the first segment over to DTS. Delivery of the 19th of 20 trains came in a couple of weeks ago, landed at the Honolulu Harbor, and then transported out to the Rail Operations Center. So we have 1 more left to go, probably coming in late next year. Hammerhead status, that was completed Sunday night. Thank you, Ed, again, for allowing us to block the traffic overnight. So all of the hammerheads are done. Engineer of record by today owes us a letter saying that everything is complete and safe. So I did sign a conditional safety certificate to DTS a couple of weeks ago when we finished the trial running, but we need to close out the hammerheads. We need HDOT to sign off on that, and then I can write a final safety certificate to DTS, and that's what's holding up the final transfer to DTS. And then finally, award of the core system consulting contract that was with Lee and Elliott. That one takes us all the way out to the end of 2030. And then the last consultant contract that would need to be rebid would be the HDR one, seconded consultant, but their current contract is good for the next 2 years. So Chair, that concludes my report and open to any questions.
Thank you. Members, any questions of the executive director? Anyone? Yes.
Just one. The decision was made to proceed with fixing the hammerheads and leave the discussion about who pays for it until after. Now we're after. Has that conversation started yet?
No, it has not, and I don't anticipate part paying for anything unless
really?
Kiewit files some kind of a claim. But up till now, everything has been paid for by Kiewit.
Excellent. And on, while we're at it, on the frogs?
The frogs, we have not started any conversations with Hitachi on that.
Thanks.
Any other questions, members? Lauren, let me follow up with what Anthony asked about, because this has been a pet project of mine throughout the whole time. That is, even if it's everything's been paid up for by Kiewit, the issue on the hammerheads would be, okay, what's the future warranties, if any, and what are the guarantees that Hart has that when the repair, though everyone agreed, even if it does, even if we think it's going to work, if it doesn't work, or if it subsequently occurs somewhere else, okay, we're out of the statute period or warranty period, what happens then?
The engineer of record is on record for life. I mean, if something happens, if something fails, it's not a warranty issue. We will go back to the engineer of record, even if it's 20 years from now.
And who is the engineer of record?
HNTB under Kiewit, it's a design build.
Okay, so what you're saying is they have concurred that they are on this for life, that entity is on this for life?
It's just if you're the engineer of record, you are. You don't have a choice.
Do you have an analysis by Corporation Counsel as to how that then interfaces with our statutes in the state? We have specific statutes on construction responsibility and the statute of limitations.
I do not have an analysis, but if you'd like me to ask Core to get
Yes,
one, okay.
I think
we'll
you
do it.
should, because I don't think this is something that we should let anybody walk away from simply because we think the engineer of record is on there for life. Because if I recall that statute correctly, it also covers architects and engineers. The whole idea of a statute of limitation is that it doesn't go on forever unless the parties agree. So yes, I would like to have that analysis by Core done. Okay, and the other question I had was, so who's handling the segment 1 opening? Is it Hart or is it DTS?
DTS.
And when you say you're going to transfer it over, is that determined to be at the end of this month, which is in a couple of days?
In a couple of weeks in June.
And then it'll go to DTS.
Yes. Sure.
So Roger, as you know, there was some pilikia about the fact that you guys didn't handle the other event well, though it's a question as to who's responsible for that, where no member of the board was informed. Having said that, I believe we do have, and I don't know whether you would like to speak to it, Dan, or Cindy's going to speak to it, that the whole board can appear. As long as no board business is discussed, the votes are discussed, but they can all appear at the opening.
Yes, that's right. There's a specific provision in the Sunshine Law that would classify this as an informal meeting. So provided that the board members are not speaking to one another about board business, all board members can attend the inaugural event.
Okay. Did you hear that, Roger?
I did.
Are we going to have a problem, Roger?
We have sent out invitations. We are sending out invitations today to all board members and others. Also, the board, if they so choose, that we would allow some preview rides as well, and for board members.
What is a preview ride?
To ride before the 30th,
Oh, okay.
26, 27, or 28.
Of June.
Mhm.
Okay. And what do they need? Can they just contact you, Roger, if they want to
They
do
could.
it?
They could. That would be if they send an email to me. I'd be happy to make, and then we do want to make it a listed person, so we need to have the names of the people.
So are you specifying that they are board members, or are they, if somebody, I mean, this is being televised, so do certain people have the ability to contact you and say, hey, I'd like to be part of the preview ride?
The board members do.
Okay. Just board members for the preview ride.
Well, I think that there may be some other groups, but they are people that are related to the project.
Okay. All right. So board members, any specific questions on that now that we have the whole issue of the sunshine cleared up? This was an amendment, right, to the law? The amendment.
I'm not sure, Chair. I think so.
Well, that's okay. Because I think before we had this issue about whether all board members could be together So remember, we can all be together, but we just can't talk about board business. Yes,
So just for the board's information, the schedule of events for the 30th. We are planning to have a sort of a reception within the Halava Stadium Station starting at 9 a.m. With the ceremony, the grand opening ceremony starting at 10 a.m. At the conclusion of the ceremony, there will be an inaugural ride for participants. The grand opening ceremony is by invitation only. The system will be available to the public beginning at 2 p.m. on the 30th. The system will basically, on the 30th, the system will be offering round trip rides from stadium. Actually, on the 30th, starting at 2, all stations will be open. And public will be allowed to ride free. And then the next following 4 days, the council has authorized free rides for the public on the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th of July. And I would like to invite all the public from all parts of Oahu, really from anywhere, to come in and see this new fantastic system. It really will be awe-inspiring when you see it. I can, that, and we would like to have as many of our residents come and just sample the system, whether you're going to ride it or not, or whether you're from the west side or from the windward side. We just want our, we've taken many years to build this system, and now we have it. So I think we want it to be a good opening for everybody, and I think it's an opportunity for all residents to come and see the system.
Roger, can I just ask you a technical question? So let's go to the 30th or the pre-rides before that. And so if you get on at Halava, right?
You have to get off there too.
You got to get off there too.
Yeah.
So is it going to make stops along the way?
It'll make stops, but we would not allow deboarding at that point because the stations won't be ready for deboarding at that point. It'll be just a preview trip.
So it's just Halava then. So it's not like you can go from Halava to just,
Not on that day.
not on that day.
That's the 30th, and our starting on the 1st, all of our city bus routes that will be connecting with rail will be adjusted starting on the 1st of July.
And what about getting on or off any place else on the 1st of July?
On the 1st of July, it'll be
Like West
regular service.
Regular service.
Right.
So Roger, you said you can't get off on the 30th,
Right.
but on the 1st you can.
Correct.
Because of the 1st, you said because the stations aren't available.
We're not making them available.
Okay, that's different than saying the
They're-
stations
they're-
aren't
they're-
available.
They
'Cause I'm
are
ju-
prepared, but they're
I'm saying, I know you're good, Roger, but I don't think you're that good. That you can make something available all overnight.
no.
So this is a situation where from the 1st, everyone can board from wherever,
Correct.
right? The other interesting thing, and I rarely read Kokua Line, but I just happened to read it, and it said, somebody asked, well, what about parking? Do we pay? And it said, no, we don't pay. The public does not pay for parking at any of the rail station parking lots. Is that
Yes,
true?
it said that the public will not have to pay for parking at this time.
So on the 30th, and this is always an issue for me. So do we have parking at
We-
the
We
at
have
the
we have
Halava?
more than 1,200 parking stalls available at 3 park and ride stations. One at UH West Oahu, one at Ho'opili, and at Stadium. So we have something in the ballpark of 1,200 altogether in those 3 stations.
So is Robert, you providing us transportation if we park at Ho'opili
Mhm.
to go to Stadium to get on? Because you can only get on and off at the Stadium.
No, he's not.
He's not.
No.
Are you providing transportation?
We have, I believe, Stadium will be allowing some additional parking at Stadium.
Okay, so if you're gonna go on the ride or you're gonna go through
Yeah.
this event, you gotta park at the Stadium, period.
And we have our lot for the opening day will be restricted to invited guests while the ceremony is going on.
And that's what, up to 2:00? Is that what you're
Well,
saying?
the ceremony should probably end about 10:15. Time for the rail ride that gets back around 11:15. Opening to the public at 2.
Okay. All right. Members, any other questions? Yes, Anthony.
I was just, so are members of the board invited to the ceremony?
Yes.
Okay. Good.
That was the issue about Sunshine. So that's
Right.
why
But I
everyone's
wasn't sure
invited.
if the invite to us was for those days prior, 26, 27, 28,
Oh,
or,
You're all invited to the grand opening ceremony.
us plus certain guests.
There's, we've invited a number of people, more than 300. I don't expect that everybody will show up, of course, but we're expecting a couple of hundred people.
Okay. Any other questions by anyone?
just
Yes.
wondering if we've heard if Secretary Buttigieg is going to show up.
He is not.
Yeah.
Well, how about Nuria?
Nuria is not.
So I assume Region 9 is.
Ray's getting on a plane to India,
Oh, to India.
but a deputy will be there,
Okay.
and other guests too.
Didn't you pick this date because you thought that would be when the probabilities of all them being here would be around that time?
Not totally, no, but that was sort of a bonus feature.
All right. Anyone else? Any questions? Anyone that think the public might have a follow-up question that you want to ask for them? Yes.
Yeah, I think I was reading that some people were, wanting to try out to see if their commute could kind of work, right?
Mhm.
And on the free day, the buses aren't going to be timed and the stations aren't going to all be open. So the only time that they're going to be able to do that is kind of like on their own time on a weekend or, not on a work day or something. So, I mean, that was a concern that I had read about people trying to like make sure that the timing was right, that, that they were going to be able to get from their house to the bus, from the bus to the station, from the station to the next station, and then back on a bus to get to work. So it's just a comment. I think that it's good that we're having a free day so people can just try it out and hopefully people will be able to like take a look at the schedules and actually see that they'll be able to make their commute in a timely way. So I would encourage people to use the app, use Google, and like just take a look at the new bus routes and everything that are timed to the rail. If you're not able to do that in person, you should be able to do that online.
A couple of comments. One is that we do have 4 days of free riding, first, second, third, and fourth. Monday is a work day. So they, that's a day, albeit it's the 4th of July weekend. I don't know how many people will take the Monday off, but Monday's a work day. As far as using the Google app, yes, that's a way to do that. You can do that, but the Google app really has about a 2-week in advance stuff. So you can go to Google and you can go to the options and you can put in the date you want to travel. But that's about a 2-week advance. So that will be available, but it's not available right now because Google doesn't go a month in advance for those types of trips. But a couple of weeks in advance, yes. Third, in addition to the free days, the council's authorized us to distribute 10,000 one-day passes with holo cards, which will be free passes, and we're distributing them through area businesses. We're going to do a co-promotion with some of the area businesses, some of the shopping malls, the Zippies. We're talking to the 50th State Fair, who's going to be operating at the stadium, during that period. And what we want to do is we want to try to get these passes in the hands of people that might use the system, people on that were within the rail catchment area, for exactly the reason you mentioned, Michelle.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? If not, thank you very much, Roger. Good luck.
We feel not overly confident, but we feel confident. We're ready.
All right. We'll let you know. I'm pretty sure members of the board will be there. Okay, thank you very much. We're finished with agenda item number 2, which is the executive director's update. Now, agenda item number 3, city center utilities relocation change order status. This is just a status. Who's going to do that? Nate, you?
Aloha, Chair, Board members, Nate Meddings, Hearts Project Director. This will be a quick update. Essentially, you're going to see the CCUR downtown electrical change order in 2 weeks at the POC, and then to full board if POC approves it and passes it along. CCUR 4 Dillingham electrical work, we're going out to procurement probably in a month or two. And so that will be a separate contract. It won't be an amendment, but it'll be a full procurement. So I'll keep you apprised of that as we go along the process. But next month, you'll be seeing downtown electrical.
So the downtown electrical is an amendment to change order, but CCUR 4, which is Dillingham, is a whole new procurement. Am I hearing you correctly?
That's correct, Chair.
So why?
Why?
Why is one an amendment? I mean, you issued 2 CCUR contracts. We're told there's CCUR 2, which includes basically everything else, and 4 is Dillingham. That's a totally new procurement, and 2 is an amendment, but technically by way of a change order. So why is one a change order, and why is one a totally new procurement?
Comes down to type of work. So on downtown or CCUR 3, there's no high voltage. Essentially, that high voltage along Dillingham, those big 138 kV lines, put the dollar value up where we can't justify that to be an amendment. On 3, there's nothing above 46 kV, and I think there's only 1 or 2 circuits of 46. The rest is all 12 kV. So the existing subcontractors that Colucho has on board are qualified to perform that work. Not the case on Dillingham simply because of those high voltage lines.
So is it cost related?
Cost and skill set.
So you're saying that the NAN guys do not have the skill sets to do the basically the relocation change order status is actually just for 2, and for 4, what we're talking about is a whole new procurement. So I'm assuming because it's cost and skill set, are you saying that NAN doesn't have the skill set, or are you saying that the cost?
They are not qualified to do the work. And neither is their current electrical sub. It's a specialty. There's only a certain amount of contractors, electrical contractors, that can do 138 kV relocation. And NAN or their existing subs are not one of those.
So Nate, how are they doing CCUR 4?
So they're responsible for the infrastructure and not for any of the cabling. And it's the removal of the existing overhead lines to underground, pulling the cable and doing the splicing that requires that specialty skill set, which NAN or subs do not have. But they have the ability to build the infrastructure because that's just concrete, rebar, and conduit.
So in other words, you're just doing the conduits to accept the line,
Yes.
but everything else regarding the actual line itself has to be let by this new procurement
That's
to
correct.
a different contractor.
Yes, that's correct.
And that's expected, you just went out for, was it an RFP or RFB, or what did you do for the
We are
4?
going to go RFB. We expect it will be posted. My best projection would be July.
Okay. But on the change order, that Colucho can handle, their sub can handle, so that's why it's a change order.
Yes, that's correct.
So we're not going to amend that contract in any way to include a new contractor to do it. This is the Colucho contract.
Yeah, that's correct. We're not amending the contract, just doing an amendment for the change, incorporating that work.
So you're not going to add a new subcontractor or anything on that.
No, I believe that they had an existing subcontractor. I'll confirm that when I bring it to the board.
Okay. Members, any questions? And this is on agenda item number 3. Did I call for public testimony on agenda item number 3? Okay. Well, before you go any further, anyone in the public wanting to testify on agenda item number 3 specifically? No, and I don't think we have anyone else on virtual or, thanks, sorry about that, Nate, go ahead. Anyone else, members, on agenda item number 3?
Chair,
Yes,
I was just wondering, is this, was this new procurement budgeted? Is this part, I don't have my past documents with me here, so I can't look it up.
Yes, sir, it was. So if you guys recall the timeline of events, the infrastructure design, which was approved in 2021, that basically designed the infrastructure, meaning the route of the lines, the service connections to the building. And based off the infrastructure design, PECO takes that and does all their load calculations, and then they do their design. So it was always planned to be separately due to the 6 to 8 month lag in that. And so we always envisioned that. And yes, sir, it's included in that budget.
any other questions?
I have one.
Yes.
Does the state procurement law, what's the guideline for how big an engineering change proposal or change order can be compared to the base contract and before it needs to be put out for another bid?
So qualify this by, I'm definitely not a procurement expert, and anyone that would probably wouldn't answer that question. But no, we've gone years back. We tried to chase what is deemed a cardinal change, right? And that's kind of the threshold of what can go as an amendment and what has to go out for a procurement. We've always gone with the rule of thumb being, is it 20%? 10%. So we've always gone the rule of thumb being 10% of the original contract value. But we've never been able to actually get a firm ruling on that it is 10% or not. There's a cardinal change workbook that the state procurement, any procurement office does. And that has, was it similar to the original scope of work? Can it be performed under the existing qualifications? Is it plus or minus 10% of the work? And I think the main factor, from what I've understood, is would that change this environment at bid time? And that's kind of the main factor is, all right, would going through with this change order change the environment to each bidders? If not, that's kind of the rule of thumb, all those different requirements of what I understand it.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, I'm much more familiar with the federal procurement rules, and I think it's 50%. But really, the point is that we want to ensure that people are able to bid on work, and you're not just like change ordering your way all the way across the state with like the rail, basically. While at the same time, there's changes due to cost, due to risk, due to other kinds of activities, finding contamination or whatever that might exceed the 10%, and then we'll have to put a change order for that, or we'll have to put multiple change orders because just stuff happens. So I was just kind of wondering, but it's a pretty complicated set of rules that contracts keeps us out of jail for, right?
Yes, absolutely. And I'll go into more detail of what this work entails when I present this, but on 3 or downtown, the change order we're talking about, the electrical work is all interconnects, meaning that it connects to existing trunk lines or it connects to existing infrastructure adjacent to other utilities. So Coluccio is building the infrastructure and essentially tying in the electrical work at the same time. Whereas on Dillingham, they build all the infrastructure, have to put new cabling in, and then drop the lines. It's not as overlapped. So the majority of the scope is already captured in the 3 CCUR contract.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? Nate, it could be just that my memory is failing me, but I recall that when you came forward with the Coluccio contract, the things that you were most pleased with is you said that we were within a certain, we were like almost spot on. I think it was 200 and some, yes, 200 and some odd $1 million for that. Now, I think following up on what Anthony is saying, our understanding was that was the value of CCUR 2 or 3 or whatever you want to call it. So now you're saying this is going to be a change order. I assume it's going to be a substantial change order. And so where does that come out? Are you gonna tell me it's gonna come out of our allocated contingency on that project?
It is. So it's going to come out of the CCUR allocated
Allocated contingency?
not unallocated. So it's going to come out of CCUR allocated contingency. It's going to be for plus or minus 20 million
Right,
because it's a bid price contract. So basically, we negotiated and agreed to unit price, and then the contractor is going to get paid for whatever work they install. You're also going to see, probably not in June, but July, hopefully, a deduct change order for close to the same amount for the Halakuila column optimization we've been talking about. But the 3E will be taken from allocated contingency for CCUR
Mhm.
3. We have no intention of using that based on everything that we've experienced over the first year of the contract. And then following in July, we'll call it the Halakuila optimization, will be essentially a deduct from that once we get done negotiating. And that will either go back to allocated or could go to unallocated depending on the preference.
I think, and I may be wrong, but I think that's what I think Anthony was probably thinking along the same lines, which is that we had this 200 million plus, 204, I forget what it was, in our minds as to the amount of CCUR 323, whatever that is, other than Dillingham. And so when you said that it's at the same price, in my mind, I'm going, well, are you talking about is covered under 200 or is it my favorite category, right? Whether it's allocated or unallocated contingency. So what is the total amount of allocated contingency now on CCUR 23 on this Colucho one?
Let me check what that is. I don't have the progress report or any of those in front of me.
But you said that we haven't touched that. We haven't touched
Unallocated?
that.
Yeah,
Unallocated.
unallocated. The only thing that we touched was a couple weeks ago, I presented the LTL shock change order.
Right.
So we took 7 from that. I think that's the only change that we've had. But I'll make sure in 2 weeks at the POC change order presentation, it'll include remaining
Balances.
balance of contingencies somehow. I might do it all together just so we don't show those cards to the contractor.
Yes, I
I'll find a
understand.
way to do it.
Right.
But I'll include that in the presentation, certainly.
Right. Okay. Any other questions? Not? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, now we're going to go to agenda item number 4, which is City Center Utilities Relocation Traffic Impact. And I see Joey coming up. First of all, anyone here to testify on agenda item number 4? Anyone standing by, Cindy? Okay, all yours.
Good morning, Chair and members. Joey Manahan, Director of Government Relations and Public Involvement. Since our last meeting, I really have no major updates or issues to report. Our outreach is ongoing. We did have a mayor's town hall meeting last week at Kalakaua Intermediate School. I'm happy to report that there were no questions for the project for hard public involvement. And I don't know if I reported to the board. We were successful actually in working with Apple Maps since our last meeting. That's all I have to report, Chair.
Okay, members, any questions? And this is about the traffic impacts. Nobody gets complaints. You should hear my husband. He refuses to drive down there.
I just go to Hawaii Kai Costco now.
Everybody's moved, right? I actually use Instacart because I need my chicken for my dogs right away. So I use Instacart. But anyway, yeah. Well, at least he says I can use Instacart, so I guess that's okay. That's a positive from all of this. But you can come to my house and listen to his complaints. Yeah, so especially because you seem to not get any, I think you should hear real complaints. Tolentino is smiling because he knows my husband and he knows what real complaints can be like. Okay, anyone else? Anything else? If not, thank you very much, Joey.
Thank you, Chair.
Members, we're moving along pretty fast. Agenda item number 5, which is the full funding grant agreement amendment status. So I guess there's no Rick Keene, so it's you.
Yes.
But before you begin, anyone here to testify on agenda item number 5, the full funding grant agreement amendment status? Any? Okay, go ahead. Lori. Thank you.
Chair, yes, you're correct. Rick King would normally report on this. There's not much of an update from last month when he reported on it. We did give another draft to FTA, incorporating their comments. It was very minimal. It's just more on the description of the project. So it's still, the ball is in their court right now. But Ray Tellis is going to be here next month. And to what Roger said earlier, he's unfortunately going to miss grand opening, but we are meeting on the full funding grant agreement next month with him.
Members, any questions on the full funding grant agreement status?
So,
Yes.
Chair, so from what you're saying, there's no substantive issue that's holding us up at this point.
Correct.
Lori, do you remember when the FFGA amendment was sent to the FDA? Because recovery plan was approved in September of last year.
Yes.
So we're closer to September of this year than we are to September of last year. So how long has it been?
If my memory is correct, I want to say Rick sent a version in the December timeframe. Didn't hear back for several months from them till recently, and then Rick incorporated their comments. So maybe about 3 weeks now, we've sent them another version.
And my understanding from my recollection from Rick's prior testimony when he was here is that the issue is still, I don't know whether it's 4 or whatever it may be, but it's the environmental section. Is that still the section that's holding everything up?
Yes, Chair. Is that correct, Vance?
State your name and position, because you're kind of a new face.
Good morning, Vance Sudal Hart, Deputy Project Director. Yes, we continue with the environmental reevaluation. Section 106 has been completed. We're working on Section 4F very closely with FTA.
So just so that the layperson out there and for us as well. So when you throw out these section numbers, what are you talking about?
The
Beginning at 106.
So the state environmental requirements for the evaluation. So Section 106 is the state side. The Section 4F is the federal side.
But wait a minute. EIS law in Hawaii is 343, if I recall correctly.
Yes, that's
So when
correct.
you're saying 106, you're talking about a federal requirement that addresses the state EIS process?
Correct.
So our EIS or with the requirement not to do an EIS, what it may be, is going to be determined by whom? Who's going to be the final accepting authority?
FTA.
FDA is the final accepting authority?
That's my understanding.
You know, the final accepting authority on the whole project was the governor of the state of Hawaii.
That's the 343 process.
Right.
If I'm not
Well,
mistaken.
no, that's for the whole process. I mean, this project didn't go until the governor of the state of Hawaii accepted it. And so I'm curious as to why supplemental EIS or not needing a supplemental EIS or FONSI, whatever it may be, is going to be the FDA that's going to decide that. I just want to know, because it just is inconsistent with my recollection of how this process works.
That's my understanding, and I can double check on that.
So the state isn't going to be involved at all? Is that what you're saying?
We still need to review the 343 process. I know we have looked at what the requirements are and the regulations for 343. I don't have that final determination yet, but I will get back to you.
Did you see the reporting? I forget when it was. It was, I think, when the recovery plan came out, that the state legislature was making noises that they would like to have a review of Act 1 because we're changing it. So have you guys followed up at all as to what they may or may not do?
I would have to double check.
Because I would think that would be critical in your assessment of the project. So right now you're saying the FDA is the final accepting authority on the environmental impact statement or the fact that we are not going to do one.
Mhm.
And then it doesn't involve the state. I know it didn't involve the city before, but it was the state that was the governor was the final accepting authority. So can you double check
Yeah.
on that?
Definitely.
Okay, and then when do you think that process will get to that point? Because we've been having this,
Mhm.
okay, so that's 106.
Mhm.
And what's the other section that you cited?
4F.
4F. That's the one I remember
federal-
from Rick King.
Yep, that's the federal requirements. So we're wrapping that up, addressing some of the FTA comments and changes to the document. We expect to have that completed in the next 2 to 3 weeks. If everything is acceptable on FTA side, that will then go for their legal sufficiency review, and then the Department of Interior review.
Department of Interior is reviewing this?
Yes,
And-
because Section 4F falls under Department of Interior, it's all national parks, historical properties.
So why is it under, what do we have that's national parks and historic that's going to require the 4F
So
to be interior?
along the CCGS alignment, we do touch or come close to Mother Waldron Park, as well as a few historical properties. For example, the Prince Kuhio PJKK building or federal building on Halakawila.
So it's nothing to do with the rock, huh? The real operations center.
Nothing to do with the rock.
Have you guys, by the way, finished off the negotiations with Department of Hawaiian Homeland's Interior on the rock, the
I'm
rail
not sure.
operations center?
Chair, we're not involved with that. Actually, managing director took the lead on that. I believe that's done, but we can follow up with him.
I haven't heard that it's done. Okay. But, so technically, if you feel that that's something that's the city's negotiating with DHHL, do you know?
I think the city's section has been completed. I believe it's still pending with the Department of the Interior.
Because I don't remember seeing any notices on consultation, beneficiary consultation, which is a requirement.
There were consultations.
There were beneficiary consultations?
Yes, there were.
Oh, that's interesting. I don't remember seeing that. And then what about the exchange and then the appraisals? Are those all done?
Those are all done.
So it's just a matter of accepting it?
Correct.
Okay. So it's not, so Interior hasn't accepted.
My understanding, and Core would need to see if my understanding is correct or whether there's been any other developments, but my understanding is it is pending acceptance by Interior.
So it would be the secretary's acceptance?
I'm not aware of how Department of Interior does it. Probably the Secretary probably has to approve it. I would assume that's correct.
Maybe we should have an update because if we're going to be technically operating, you're going to be technically operating on land that isn't quite yours yet, or the city's yet.
I think we have legal right to the land to operate on the site.
Read very carefully what Hawaiian Homelands gives you. They give you licenses. They don't give you leases. This is a discussion that I had with Don Horner before.
I would agree with you, Chair. We should probably involve Core in the, to clarify that. I'm not party to that knowledge.
You do know that the provision of an agreement that's signed with Interior is that if you, with Hawaiian Homelands, is that if Interior does not approve, that you have 120 days to get our stuff off of there?
I'm aware that I've entered into an agreement with the Interior, and I think that we should probably, I don't want to go any deeper than that, but I do think that if there is an additional interest, that Core would be the proper place to discuss that.
Okay, I think we should. We should have that discussion, especially when you're going to be operating soon. And
Correct.
the ROC is critical. By the way, for those who don't understand, ROC is the Rail Operations Center. I call it the Xbox Generations headquarters. So thank you very much. Anyone else have any questions on this particular item? Yes.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick question. I think there's still some confusion out there
regarding the full funding grant agreement. So can you just remind us exactly where that cutoff point is for the, the project, where it ends inside the full funding grant agreement?
The full funded grant agreement stops at Civic Center.
Right, and then the estimated completion date for that is 2031, is that correct?
31, yes.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you.
Wait a minute, what was your question? Where the full funding grant agreement?
Where the project ends in the full funding grant agreement, because I understand the charter is different, but that's why there's some confusion out there, so.
Wait a minute, but the full funding grant agreement, are you talking about potentially the amended version or the final version? Because the present,
Yes, the amended, yes.
yeah, so that's not approved yet. But
Right.
the one that is effective now is Ala Moana. It's the MOS.
Yes,
Well, it's not even called that, but it's technically the MOS.
thank you.
Okay, anything else? If not, remember,
Chair,
yes.
I just wanted to note that when we were in discussion with the FTA on the FFGA amendment, the issue that seemed to be holding things up was our revenue projections. And at the last meeting, which unfortunately I have to leave early, so I wasn't present when Rick Keene presented his what he had to say about changing our funding source from bonding to short-term paper, leading potentially to a $500 million savings.
Right.
And I was surprised that we didn't see that anywhere in the media. If it had gone the other way, if we had suddenly announced that we were at $500 million over.
Well, ask Joey Manahan. He's gone. But you're absolutely correct. And in fact, what Rick Keene did say was and it wasn't new because it was the position of the board, as you know. When we did the recovery plan, we used TECP versus bonding, and we went through this discussion. So actually, I will forward to you, because I had Cindy go through all the links, because it's more than just the using GO bonds or TECP. The other major issue that hasn't been tapped upon yet is really the increase in the revenue source by GET and TAT. Because I think, if I recall correctly, I think Natalie thought it should be about 4.9. Rick was about 5. We settled at 5.6, I think. But the actuals to right now is like 13%. And the TAT is also a large amount compared to what we were programming for. So I think what we need to do is we need to, there's another now, whether or not, and I don't want to get into whether or not this is the administration's strategy, that somehow they don't show as much money, which could be, but I think it's disingenuous for the public as well as for the board, who put in so much work on the recovery plan, that the amounts that were referenced, we should also have a clear understanding, because it does affect the Ala Moana and Beyond Peak. Because you now have, so I think the interesting thing at the end, what Rick said, was that the surplus, at the anticipated surplus at the end, went from 100 something million to 477 or something like that, separate and apart from the amounts that were saved on the quote unquote TCP versus the GEO bonds. And in addition to that, just talking about bonds, for example, the other thing we raised was the premiums, which haven't been addressed in the recovery plan, except in our objections to what it was. Remember, I think at one point there was like 200 and something million dollars of premiums, which were given back to HART for using of GEO bonds. So that's going to, of course, be affected when we look at GEO bonds versus TCP. But notwithstanding, you're still going to get money back. And that's the premium. It's like, what do you call that? It's like interest on using your credit card, or extra miles, we get something like that. So those are the various points. The other issue, and we haven't had have we had any decision yet, Laurie, by FDA as to how they're going to release the tranches? The release of the tranches also affects the amount of money that we have.
The beginning funds is already set. So once the full funding
Right.
grant agreement is amended, we get the first tranche, and then the second one is when we award CCGS. But after that, they aren't clear on when they're going to release that.
Yeah, because I think what we were saying was they should release at the minimum 3. And they had like 100 million, 100 million. It was like a whole bunch. And then the difference is substantial. So that was another thing that we had an issue with as a board. So yeah. So those are the things that I think we are at some point when Rick gets back, we should probably sit down and understand clearly, or maybe in your pig you can do it, about what exactly is the money that we're dealing with.
And I'll just say on that, of course, the PIG has had its first meeting, but we can't make interim reports, so I can't really tell you anything about it. But clearly, this is information that the public at large can deduce, makes it perhaps, should we say, more probable or possible that we will get to Ala Moana.
Palatable.
I mean, it does raise that hope.
Right. Members, any other questions? If not, what I would like to do is ask that the board go into executive session. So I'd like to have a motion to this effect, that the board enter executive session pursuant to Hawaii Revised Statutes 92-4, subsection 92-5A4, to consult with its attorneys on questions and issues of matters pertaining to the board's powers, duties, privileges, immunities, and liabilities, and subsection 92-5A8, to deliberate or make decision upon the matter that requires the consideration or information that must be kept confidential pursuant to state or federal law or a court order. And this is, of course, under the agenda item of the full funding grant agreement. So can I have that motion, please?
I make that motion.
Yes, second? Second by Art. Thank you. Natalie, are you going to say yours? Natalie's going to make her statement.
Yes, thank you. So I understand that since I have not signed the confidentiality agreement, I will not be allowed in that session. And that is due to the disagreement between the AG and the Corporation Council.
Thank you very much. Anyone else have any discussion? We have a motion and a second. If not, do I have unanimous consent, members, that we will go into executive session? Hearing no objection, we will convene into executive session. I don't anticipate that will be very long, but let's move right now.
We're staying here.
Oh, we're staying here? Bye.
Sorry, everyone else.
Cheers.
Thank you very much. We are back from the executive session on agenda item number 5. What we are going to do is at the next regularly scheduled board meeting, we will be convening a PIG, a Permitted Interaction Group, on the full funding grant agreement and its related issues. We can't do it now because it's not been agendized, but at the next regularly scheduled board meeting. Having said that, members, the next item on the agenda is adjournment. I'm hearing no objection to adjournment, so we are adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I know. This
Right?
has got to be the...
Please don't. Good morning. This is Michelle Brungraber, Chair of the HR Committee. I'm calling the meeting to order at 11:08 a.m. on May 26th, and I'm asking if anyone has any public testimony. No public testimony. The agenda item is the Executive Director and CEO's annual performance review. Oh, roll call. Sorry. Colleen Hanabusa.
Here.
Anthony Alto.
Here.
Joe O'Donnell. Roger Morton.
Here.
Okay, Kika is excused, and so we have enough members. So again, public testimony. Do we have any public testimony?
We do not.
No, and then that's the agenda item, and I'd like to move directly into executive session so we can have the discussion. Can I have a motion to go into executive session? And I will read that the board may enter into executive session pursuant to Hawaii Revised Statute Section 92-4 and subsection 92-5A2 and subsection 92-5A4. Can I have a motion to go into
Chair,
executive
I so
session?
move.
In a second?
Second.
Thank you. Okay, so we're going to be moving into executive session now.
All in favor?
All in favor? All opposed? Nobody is opposed, so we'll be moving into executive session. During executive session, discussed topic number 2. Make a
Yep,
recommendation.
I'd like to make a motion that we forward to the full board the recommendations that we've adopted for the annual performance review and performance criteria for the executive director.
Second?
I'm second.
Okay, great. So does anybody have any other comments or negative, positive? Okay, so then that's passed and we're gonna forward that to the full board in June. And with that, unless there's anybody here for public testimony, which I don't see anybody here, we are formally adjourned at 1:06. Okay, better than what you usually get.